Honourable Speaker, Honourable Prime Minister, Honourable Deputy Prime Ministers, Honourable Ministers, Honourable Leader of Opposition, Honourable Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen in the public gallery, and to all those who are watching these proceedings on live platform. Honourable Speaker, firstly I'd like to congratulate the Honourable Banivalu in her appointment as the Minister for Fisheries and Forestry, and I thank our colleague, the Honourable Wondo, for his service as Minister. Of course, he will continue to serve the people of Fiji with his know-how and skill set, with unwavering commitment to the coalition government. Secondly, I congratulate the Attorney General, the Honourable Graham Liang, in his appointment as Chief Legal Advisor to Government and Cabinet. Mr. Speaker, every once in a while, a generation of people, and for our purpose, a group of leaders would be called upon to a time of national rebuilding, resetting, and revisioning. That would be called upon to congregate around a fresh new vision for a better country. They would be required to rally around a new set of ideals that would have an impact on the lives of our nation's citizens now, and most importantly, in the future. That future already has a mortgage on it in our children's name. That time, Mr. Speaker, is upon us now. In saying that, Mr. Speaker, I salute the 9 independent members who have sworn support to the Honourable Prime Minister. When I say anything about the opposition in this address, it excludes the 9 members who are, for all intents and purposes of this speech, Mr. Speaker, are part of government. Mr. Speaker, it is time to rebuild the political, economical, and the social landscape of our nation. For those who will come after us, it's time to rehash, rethink together as leaders, collectively as representatives of voters who thought it prudent to put us here in the first place. Let us validate their hope, their aspirations, and hand them a Fiji that they can enjoy and continue to call home, and God willing, for many generations to come. The statement by the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister responsible for finance cannot be clearer for the future. We need a budget that speaks truth to the citizens of our nation now and sets the stage for growth, bringing equity into the economy that we can all participate in the future. Some critics on the other side, that's excluding the 9, claims that it lacks glamour, it lacks colour, it lacks the high-ending statements. Whilst they are entitled to such opinions, Mr. Speaker, this year's budget, in my view, seeks to do a few things. Firstly, it seeks to salvage the nation from 1.5 decade-long of poor fiscal management and its impacts, bloated economic numbers, fragile investment environment, targeted persecutions, and unsustainable programs that has created an extremely unhealthy economic environment unconducive for future growth. Empowerment programs for self-sufficiency, monitoring of the government expenditure to gauge the efficacy of the public dollar, encouragement to entice new industries, and innovation to bring employment were all drawn downwards in favour of the much easier and much costlier hand-to-mouth policies of the previous government. Secondly, it realizes that the GDP to debt ratio must come down and must continue to come down for the next decade for stability, provide more latitude for government to spend on growth areas that will energize the economic environment for contextual investment, targeted assistance, and making Fiji a country that can attract the large investments of the world. Much noise has come from the loyalists, have been in no programs, no incentives, no new infrastructure, etc. And as DPM Kamikamida said to me in passing yesterday, they spent like a wounded bull in the last decade that has resulted in very fiscal space to move post-election. That's true. But Mr. Speaker, Google is here. Large BPOs are coming. Large farming companies are now doing their due diligence before they put shovel to the ground. New hotel ventures are in the horizon. And as announced by the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister Kamikamida on Monday, $6.25 billion of investment is in the immediate forecast. Mr. Speaker, this is what economic prudence and discipline in governance. Thus, in only 18 months, it brings investor confidence back to the country. Imagine, Mr. Speaker, the employment that will be generated by these investments. The Lyndhurst Colombo project, for example, Mr. Speaker, will alone, that single one project will bring about 10,000 to 15,000 direct employments when all the project phases are completed. That's a government that is giving confidence to investment. That's a government that is giving confidence to young Fijians, a job launching pad to begin a career, get married, raise a family, and prosper right here at home. It must not be forgotten, Mr. Speaker, that this government is 18 years old, and we are doing the best we can within means. The previous government and its founding platform ruled Fiji for 16 years. We are at just the surface level of repairing our economy, Mr. Speaker, and reigniting Fiji that was built by our founding fathers pre- and post-independence democracy. Whilst much has been accomplished, Mr. Speaker, much more needs to be done. We are not flush with funds as a nation, so we must all work within our means. Working within our means, Mr. Speaker, is something that the Bainimarama government didn't have in its dictionary for the last 16 years. They overspent easily between $1 to $2 billion during their tenure in office. And that, Mr. Speaker, is irresponsible government. The opposition have talked about natural disasters and pandemic as the shocks in our progress as a nation. Let me remind them that the most devastating disaster and a phenomenon more damaging than COVID that was pushed on the people of Fiji as early as 2006 was a two-man government and their much-proclaimed leaders. Mr. Speaker, that two-man government gave Fiji the highest debt a single government has given us since all the governments put together post-independence. They gave Fiji a warped political party registration law that they're now paying for it. In 2014, Mr. Speaker, they cooked the economic books. They realigned the statisticians to change the baseline and therefore change the numbers. No wonder, Mr. Speaker, that by 2018, there was a huge confusion between the GDP and the denial by the previous Prime Minister. And speaking of denial, Mr. Speaker, few hundreds of thousands of dollars still has yet to be paid by the registered party, right? Right. 2 much noise from the other side, Mr. Speaker. That government is not doing enough. That government is not doing enough, Mr. Speaker. We are doing everything that a responsible government will do within its means. Perhaps on the other side, Mr. Speaker, some of the honourable members may not have maths as their best subject. In this year's budget, Mr. Speaker, 410 million of this year's budget is in direct assistance. In addition to that, 22 zero-rated items on vet. We have also included, of course, the prescribed medicine. We have increased salaries for the civil servants as well as upping the minimum wage. In the sugar industry, this year, we are on the last payment, $101.08 is the payment. The largest ever, Mr. Speaker, in the history of sugar industry in Fiji. Largest ever. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Lands and Mineral Resources has this year been allocated $36.5 million. That's an increase of $6.4 million from the previous year. The budget increase will continue to allow the ministry to enhance its commitment and fulfill its roles to effectively and efficiently administer and regulate land and mineral resource sector. For the Ministry of Lands, Mr. Speaker, also I may have to say this, Mr. Speaker, before my time is up. To the people who may not have had a good run with my ministry and the staff of the ministry this year, I stand here as a responsible minister to ask for your forgiveness. We will work towards our collective effort to make sure that our service delivery in the next financial year is better. Mr. Speaker, this government's budget may not be filled with fancy words of the previous government's budget, but we know what, Mr. Speaker, it is attending to the everyday need of Fijians, especially those who live farther away from the main urban centres and the peri-urban centres of Fiji. Mr. Speaker, I've run out of time. I fully support the budget presented by the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister responsible for Finance. the Honourable Dr. Biman Prasad. I thank his team at the Ministry of Finance, the Permanent Secretary, Director Budget, and all of the team of the entire budget team. Lagi sako pabiti, nasa turang speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Vosarogo, for your response.